Okay, so we're going to do a short introduction to query strings. So query strings are an important thing to understand when it comes to tracking. And what we're going to do now is just test how these work using a little bit of PHP code. So fire up FileZilla and fire up a browser of some description. Let's connect to our Linode and we'll go in here, go into public, and we're going to make a new file. Let's make a file called test.php. I actually call it query.php. Okay, we can edit this directly, and all we're going to do is some simple PHP code. So I'm actually going to resize things a little bit, just to make it easy to click between. So let's go to linode /that query.php. Now, one thing you need to note, on the servers that we have set up, we actually have some PHP caching configured, and this is to help your server handle more traffic when you're using PHP files. So as a result, the changes that we're going to make, some of them are going to take a while to actually appear in our browser because of that caching. But when it comes to dynamic parts of PHP, so to clarify, changes we make to this file directly will take a while to propagate, but changes or the dynamic behavior associated with the PHP code, that's always going to be dynamic and should work fine. So let's make a basic PHP file just with opening and closing PHP tags, and let's use the echo command or echo function, echo hi AMC participants, and then put a semicolon here to close the line, hit Control S, say yes, we want to upload that, and now refresh here. Now you can see it's not actually showing any changes, right? Because of that caching. But if I was to hit Control F5 and basically just spam F5, what's going to happen is eventually the PHP process which handled this first request, it is going to expire and we're going to sort of update. So it kind of depends on time and how many requests your server's handling, but there's a bit of a delay there. And this is why that business website was having issues or was caching when I uploaded things before. It was because of the caching configuration, which I wasn't aware of at the time. So I'm just going to hold down F5 and see what happens. And I'll sort of overload it with requests until it works. The logical approach here is probably just to rename the file or actually go take a break and make a coffee. Okay, so in this case, there's a caching problem, right? And it's going to take some indefinite amount of time to actually fix itself. Here's what I would do. Oh, there we go. So, of course, right on the buzzer. To fix that, what you could do is change this to query2.php, and then that is going to work first time because it's now a completely different file name. So if I change this to hi AMC participants 2 and save that. Now if I refresh, that's not going to do anything in any normal time period, but if I now change this to query 2 and I load query 2, there you go. So there's a lesson on caching. Now what I want to do is I want to actually get something from the URL, from the query string. To do that, we use something called get command. Now this pulls things from a URL, and if I put square brackets and apostrophes or single quotes, what I want to do here is put the name of the key. So if I have something equals this, the key is called something. So let's put our test passed thing in here. Now, if I put this isn't actually going to do anything, so I want to put echo and then echo this. Now, you don't really need to know that much PHP at all for affiliate marketing, but it is handy to use various PHP codes and scripts in landers that you're using. So it is kind of nice to know the basics, and the general things that you'll use. And I'll link to some primers on using PHP. And the more you kind of understand it, the less likely you are to get completely flummoxed by what's going on. Right, well, what is this doing? I got disconnected for some reason. What are you doing? Let's connect again. This is probably just my internet being terrible. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second while we figure out what that's doing. Okay, so that was actually quite funny. I think the reason that timed out and wasn't working was actually because I blocked myself because I was holding and refreshing spam, basically spamming my own page hundreds and hundreds of times. Now, to reset that, I kind of just brute forced. So I logged in to my server and I ran service nginx restart, then I ran service IP tables restart, and then I ran service CSF restart. So this was kind of like the various services which might be blocking me in some way, and then that seemed to fix it, so I kind of just brute forced around that. Anyway, moving on. Now, if I refresh this page, what is it doing? Is it loading this? First of all, where you should generally do some sort of update on the page so that you know that it's actually updated in some way. So let's call that participant. Query 2, refresh, nothing, so I'm just going to completely work around this and change this file name every time because I don't want to deal with waiting because of caching. Query 3. Oops, well, I was updating query, so view and edit that. There we go. Hi, AMC participant. Now let's do echo get. We'll call this past thing. And put a semicolon to end. Save that query 3. That should ask us to update. Go. Now this is cached again, of course. So let's change that to query 4, and we'll actually close that because we're no longer editing that file. And then change this to query 4. There we go. So that now is definitely updated. Now remember we added this get command for something called past thing. So now, and we're echoing that. Now if we want that to print in the page, what we need to do is add a query string. So we can put past thing equals something. And there you go. You can see that's printing right on the end there. Now, one other thing you should be aware of is it's kind of a security risk to print things from a query string directly into the page. So I could, for example, put a break in here, press enter, and note it is dynamic because caching is not actually affecting this code at all. And I can put various things in here. I could start putting image source tags, for example. And see, it's got a broken image. So this is kind of a security concern because you could inject JavaScript and various malicious things into someone's URL and have their page code actually printed on the page directly, essentially injecting code into it, which may or may not cause trouble. So to get around that, you tend to always want to do something called URL encoding, which is this guy here with some sort of string here. So what you can do is you can actually wrap this entire thing in URL encode like so, and then save that, upload that. Now that's probably not going to update because it's cached, so again, close this, update this. I know this is a bit laborious, but there's a reason for that. 5. There you go, and notice now that this is completely different. That's because it's taken these values and it's kind of encoded them into the symbols that represent each of those, rather than injecting it as raw HTML. And that's something you definitely want to do if you are printing or echoing query strings and things into the page. You have to be careful there. Now the alternative is if your tracker does that, and if your tracker does that, then you're fine. If you're only injecting stuff through your tracker, then you are all good. But remember, that's a potential security issue. Okay, now what else do we want to do here? Let's do some other things. So let's copy this, And we can say echo, hi, my name is, and then here we want to echo let's echo name. Okay, so now this is going to get a little bit confusing because now we have to start combining PHP with raw text. So normal raw text goes in brackets. Then if we actually want to append something from PHP, something dynamic like this get name, I'll remove this URL encode for the moment to avoid confusion. Then we have to do something called concatenation. Now whenever you're going to merge normal raw text with PHP code, you need to put a dot to concatenate things like so. And then we need to put a dot there and a bracket and a quote here when we want to start writing normal text again. So we'd say, hey, my name is so-and-so. I am an AMC participant from, and then we can echo your country, for example. So I'm going to end with a quote mark there, put a dot. I'm going to put, okay, let's put word wrap on from get, and let's get country. And then finish that off with a full stop. So to do a full stop, I'm actually going to do dot to end the concatenation, quote mark, full stop, quote mark, all done. Now here we can get rid of that, we don't need it. There we go, I'm going to save that. And I'm going to do my typical thing and change it to query 6. Change this to 6.php. There we go, and notice that these are kind of blank because it's trying to fill it with data from the query strings, which I haven't actually passed. I need to put name and country in there, so I input my name equals David, ampersand or and, country equals, I'm going to put Canada, that's my country. There you go. And of course, so hopefully this shows you how query strings actually work, how you can take this data from the actual URL, from this query string, query meaning it starts with a query, with key value pairs and key equals value. We can get these using PHP very, very simply, and then we can inject them into our page code however we like. And this is a very simple way that people will inject device models and countries and so on dynamically into their pages, so that when users come from a different country, for example, or have some different attributes, it personalizes the page dynamically to them.